Hey everybody, this is AP, and today I wanted to show you a project that I made a little while ago that's been really useful to me. It's a MIDI preset changer and expression pedal emulator. You can see it's just got one button, there's a little MIDI jack on the side, and a 9-volt power adapter just like any pedal board would have. So I use this with my Line 6 M5. The main thing I use it for is to change presets. Because as you know, if you have one of these, it's kind of difficult to use. You have to push both buttons, then go up or down, then push both of them again. And even with the big feet that I have, it's kind of hard to push both of those and get to the right preset within a few seconds, you know. So what I have this set up to do is as I push this button, it'll cycle through the first 4 presets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's all that I ever use is 4. You could set it up to do whatever you want. It's all in the code. I'll show you that in a little bit. So that's really useful. The other thing that I do with it is if you hold it down for a second or so, it'll change the expression pedal setting from back to forward, and then if you hold it down again, it'll go forward to back. So this allows you to get like 2 presets within a preset, or 2 settings. The third thing that you can do, if you do a long hold on this, when you change presets, they'll either be automatically on, or if you hold it down again, it'll change it so they're automatically off. So let's take a moment and I'll show you exactly how I use this thing. Okay, I've got the 2 just set up here now. So like I mentioned before, if you just do a quick press of the button, it'll cycle through the first 4 presets. So I've got a tri-chorus, tremolo, pitch glide, and the Tron up for the 4 presets. And it just cycles through them 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the other function that this will do, if you hold down the button for about a second, if you watch this one, this is the pitch glide. I have it set up for plus 12 in one expression pedal position and minus 12 in the other expression pedal position. And we can change that when the button is held down for about a second. So if I hold it down, you can see that now it's down at minus 12. Hold it down again, it's back up to plus 12. So for any preset, like this one, here's the mix. You have 2 settings within each preset, which is really nice. So the final thing that this can do, I don't use it as often, but if you do a long press, you'll see this button flash a couple times. So now what that means is when I go through the presets, the pedal will always be on right away, right when I switch the preset. And if I hold it down again for a few seconds, you'll see this flash again, the on off. And now it's always off. And that's the way it's set by default. Another way you could use this, but I don't have it set up, is if you do a hold on it, you ramp up the expression pedal slowly over time, or ramp it down. That could be pretty cool with like a pitch glide. Okay, so now let's talk about how I built this thing. As you can see, this is just a license plate that I cut out with some tin snips, and I went to the hardware store, and I also got a little riveter. I think it was like 15 bucks. So you kind of make a box pattern with 2 halves, and you can just rivet it together. And then the button and the jack I found on the internet, and this was just an extra cable that I had laying around. So now let's take a look on the inside, see what's going on in there. It's really not that bad. It's not that crazy. Okay, I'm going to take a second now that I got this opened up. So you can see the 2 halves. This is just a short box with a lot of the edges cut away. It's just enough to cover up the bottom. And now you can see inside here we have our MIDI jack and our power cable coming in. And then this is the Arduino, which I have wrapped up in electrical tape. Not the best solution, but it's lasted a year and it's good enough for me. So now looking here at the Arduino, you can see we're using 2 of the pins. D2 is our button, and on the back we have a pull down resistor which goes between that pin and ground to give it a ground reference. And TX, this is the serial data connection. So when we talk about MIDI, it's actually a serial data connection. Basically, that is just one wire that has a digital binary signal being sent down it, and you're basically just sending numbers. And I'll go through that in more detail when I show you the code. And then up here we just have the power input and ground in the very top left, and then 5-volt power, which goes to our switch, and also through a resistor to the MIDI jack. That's just part of what MIDI expects. So really, the Nano is overkill for this. There's all kinds of unused pins, and I think there's Arduino Mini that's a little bit smaller, which still has more than enough pins for this, obviously. So now I'm going to go through the code really quickly. I'm not going to talk about everything. I'll just give you the highlights to tell you in general how it works. I had found code in a couple different places that I kind of mashed together for this. The main really useful one was from this guy, Jeff, who made a big, nice function that figures out whether it was a short button press, a medium button press, or a long button press. There's also an option for a double click, but I didn't use that. I couldn't quite get it to work right. And the reason that you need this function in addition to figuring out which kind of press it was is there's this thing called debounce. So when you have a button or any sort of physical switch with an Arduino or electronic device, it's not quite like flipping a light switch where you flip it and the light comes on, and you flip it off and the light turns off, and it looks very seamless. In reality, when those two points start to contact, they might touch, they might slide a little bit, it makes noise, so then it might try to turn off and on a bunch of times really quickly. So the process of avoiding this is called debounce. So basically, it'll see that the input has changed, and it'll wait a certain number of seconds and see if the input is still changed. So it'll see that it's on, and it'll wait a while, a couple 100 milliseconds maybe, and then it'll check again, see if it's still on, and then it'll do something. Because otherwise what happens is it just switches on and off really fast, and your device can't keep up, and you can't control it. Okay, so anyway, with that out of the way, I found this nice function called check button that does that. So if we look up here in the setup, we see all we're doing is starting the serial output at 31250, and we're telling it which button we want to be, or which pin we want to be our button input. And now in our loop, this is what's going to be repeated every time by the code, or by the Arduino, I should say. So first, like I said, we have our check button function, and that is just kind of a black box. I don't know how it works. I don't really care. All I know is you set one or two things and it works, and it puts out a 1, 2, 3, or 4 depending on what kind of button push it determined happened. So our single click is next preset, our hold is expression pedal, and our third one is going to tell the pedal whether we want it to be on when we switch presets or off. So if I go down to the next preset function, we can see we're sending a program change through MIDI. I have a function set up to do this, so I'll go down and show you that real quick. So with a program change, you have 2 data bytes, and with a control change, you have 3 data bytes. So program change, the first number tells it that it's a program change. I guess any number from 192 to 207, I just use 192. So all you do is do serial write 192. That tells it this next thing is going to be a program change. So here, then all you got to do is put in the number 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what goes into this thing right here. So once it gets those 2 numbers, it doesn't look for anything else. It just sits and waits until I do something else. So let's say I hit the expression pedal. I did a long hold, or I'm sorry, a regular hold. So let's go down the expression pedal function, expression toggle. So I have a global variable that tells it whether it's in the forward or back position. Expression pedal changes are a control change, and I have a function for that as well. So if you send it a 176 to 191 will tell the device that this is a control change. And when you have a control change, you have 2 data bytes. The first one tells it which control parameter you want to change. And the second one is the value to which you want to set that parameter, anywhere from 0 to 127. So program change, you have 2 data bytes, or you have 2 numbers that you're sending. One of them is a data byte. Control change, you have 3 numbers that you're sending. 2 of them contain actual data. And then I also have it, when you hit the next preset, it turns the expression pedal back to the false position. So that way you always end up with your main setting for that preset. And then if you want to go to the second setting, you hold down the button. And finally, the toggle on when switching. I'll go down to that function. So basically, once the button function is determined, it was a long hold. All this does, I turn the effect on, I turn the effect off a bunch of times, and then I set this Boolean right here. I have this function right here called effect on off. So when it's switching the preset, depending on the value of this Boolean here, basically if you send it 64, it turns the effect on, it turns the pedal on, or if you send it a 0, it will turn it off. So depending on what that Boolean is set on, it tells it to turn it on or off when you switch to it. Okay, I think that's enough to say about that. I'll post this code and I'll post a schematic showing how the Arduino is wired up. It's really simple, really standard stuff. If I could figure it out, just about anybody could probably figure it out, but I'll put it on there anyway. The code was definitely the hardest part of this. It took some searching to find that button function. So obviously this is for a Line 6 M5. You could rewrite the control changes in this and use it with any other pedal to do anything that you wanted. Use your imagination. So hopefully you found this useful, and I know I have. So I guess that's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Sorry if it was a little bit long-winded. I hope you got something out of it. Check out my other videos if you haven't, and stay tuned for more someday. Bye.